What's up, everybody? I'm your host today, TJ Zwarych, and it is time for some FanDuel Friday, and we're talking some NFL football. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Drizzy26, Andre Alford. I'm going to give him a couple seconds to allow his dog to stop barking as he is muted. And I'm going to start talking about FanDuel a little bit for this week because we got a lot of great contests and we've been talking before the show. I'm going to be keeping a real tight pool, and it has made me decide I want to run 150 because I can make almost all the combinations that I want to make with this very tight pool I'm running today. And so we're going to dive into this because we got one game in particular, Buffalo and Kansas City, that I think is going to take up a lot of our time. Dre, how you doing? And how do you like this slate we got cooking up for this weekend?
I love this slate. To me, this is probably one of the best slates on the year, in my opinion. Easy to differentiate and get away from the main chalk. And then even within that game, there's ways to get different. So the case game you talked about. So like you said, I'm trying to get more of a tighter pool like you have and go from there. Hopefully I can do that and we collaborate here and make the best of it and find a way to give some people some winning plays and also get us some winning plays that we weren't thinking about before.
So let's start talking with QBs and with stacks. So I'm playing one main lineup. I got my three main tournament lineups after that, and then I'm going to be looking to run 150. Now, my strategy for my 150 is going to be different than my strategy for my single entry, 3-entry max stuff. Not so much because of the fields. I'm still playing some big tournaments, but simply because I found myself in 4 lineups running 3 of them with Josh Allen. And that gets me very afraid of the likes of Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes in particular, one of those guys beating me. And so in my 150, I'm going to be looking to get a little bit over on those guys, I think. But Josh Allen takes the cake to me as the top quarterback play and the Buffalo Bills as the top stack. The Bills are a great team. They're a high-powered offense. KC's defense is nothing to be feared, and they have an offense strong enough to keep up with the Bills or even get ahead of the Bills and make Josh Allen need to throw the ball. Josh Allen is my favorite quarterback on this slate by a mile. Lamar Jackson would come second, but he's just not at enough of a discount for me to like him more than Josh Allen in a tougher matchup, as crazy as that is to say against the Giants. So Josh Allen is my number one. I'm running 4 main lineups, and he's in 3 of them. How do you view the quarterback position, and what are some of your other top stacks?
Well, obviously you gotta love Josh Allen. Like, to me, I think he is definitely the top stack, top player on the board. He just had, like, as we saw here, I pulled it up before, he's had 30 in almost every single game or close to it. He's been a QB, probably at least top 5 QB in every single week, or he would have been on if he was playing on every single main slate here. So there's no way to get around it. The thing about this game is going to be a different game, a different animal. Steve Spagnuolo can coach really well. He's a defensive coach for the Kansas City Chiefs. So while I do expect Josh Allen to have a big game, I love the secondary pieces for the stack. Like I know everyone's going to be high on Stephon Diggs, which is fine. I really do like a guy like Isaiah McKenzie today if he plays. I think he's a fantastic play today. I know people are going to be heavy on Gabe Davis too after that 4-touchdown game he had in the playoffs, which is fine, and I like that play as well too. But I think Isaiah McKenzie could be a sneaky tournament play as well. And then we got to pay attention to the tight end position to see if Knox is in or out, because that's another guy I think that can have some upside here on this slate. I do also like Lamar Jackson here. 8.8K is, I think, honestly every dollar little matters on the slate, and he has the upside on this slate to just break it. As you can see against the Patriots and the Miami back-to-back weeks, 40 plus fantasy points. This man is just on another level, and we know he's going to be without Bateman, so it's just going to be Duvernay. So like his target tree or his targets are going to be fairly simple. Likely It's going to be Likely, Andrews, and Duvernay mainly. That's going to be catching the ball. So and sprinkling the other receivers there. So, but I like Lamar Jackson a lot. I think the Giants can push him a little bit. He would be probably like my second or third favorite quarterback. But I do also like Kyler Murray. Uh, Kyler Murray here in the spot against Seattle, he should be the top quarterback on this slate. I know he's second, coming to second ownership wise, but that discount is good. It's a $900 discount on him, and he's starting to run the ball. Granted, he only had 4 attempts, but the 42 yards was promising. One touchdown. He's going to have more than one touchdown. I think that's going to come. And if he can have a game where he's putting together like 3 touchdowns and one rushing touchdown as well, I think he can definitely have the upside to get there, especially in this game with Seattle, which I think should be honestly the most popular game on the slate, but it's not going to be. The total is up there. Um, Both these defenses are not good. I can see this game going just back and forth, especially with all the pieces getting cheaper here as it goes on. And I do also like getting to a little bit of Geno Smith here on the opposite side because I think he's going to push Arizona to the limit here. And Geno's played well this season. And I want to give a betting thing too, real quick. Um, if the way right now, I would put money on Geno Smith winning most improved player of the year or whatever they have it in for the NFL because if he plays like if the way he's been playing is just unbelievable, and if he continues to play like this for the rest of the season, or at least till like week 15, 16, he has to have that award wrapped up. Like the way he's been playing, it's just been unbelievable. It's been great. It's been producing wins or not very close games for them, and they've been very competitive with him. So I like Geno Smith this week against Arizona. And I don't mind him for sure. Obviously, you talk about Patrick Mahomes a little bit. I like him too. Um, I think it's just a good matchup on the other side. People are not going to play him as much. They're going to play more so Josh. But I'll get to some Patty Mahomes here, and then I know your player pool was tight. I think did you have Tom Brady in your pool?
I do. One of the reasons I'm looking to play some Tom Brady this week as well is because there are so many injuries to that Pittsburgh defense. In particular, now added to he's going to be out this week is Minka Fitzpatrick. And so I like Tom Brady to be able to carve up this Pittsburgh secondary. I don't know if Pittsburgh is going to be able to keep the game close enough for him to have a real big game, but it is in Pittsburgh, and I like Tom to potentially throw 3 TDs in the first half type of thing of this one. But he's not someone I'm going to get to in multitudes. Like that's just like a tournament sprinkle for me. Then, well, in a vacuum, Lamar Jackson is my next favorite after Josh Allen. The one that I do have in my main set of lineups that's not named Josh Allen is Kyler Murray. And I think people are going to get afraid a little bit due to the game log. He hasn't had a strong season so far. The Arizona offense has really sputtered. There is no better place to get back on track than Seattle, which is not something we're used to saying in the past, but it is the case this year. Seattle's defense has been okay for putting up some decent fantasy point games, but they give up a lot of points. And I think Kyler Murray is going to have a really big day. The other thing keeping his ownership down, and we're going to get to the running back position, is Eno Benjamin is probably going to be one of the most popular backs this week with Darrell Williams and James Conner both out. And so with a lot of people wanting to play Eno, they may not want to play Kyler Murray. I don't think there's an issue playing them together. It's not optimal, and I'm not looking to do it by any means, but I don't know that I'd necessarily set a group to say I don't want it to happen. But there are a lot of other running backs on this slate that if I am playing Kyler Murray, I think I would just rather get to them instead. Geno Smith, Tom Brady, I'll probably get to them about the same amount. Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, and Kyler Murray, I think I'm going to prioritize similarly. And then now that I am going to run 150 and I wasn't planning on it before, I may just put in a couple full Ram stacks. Matt Stafford, we're going to get chalky Darrell Henderson now with Cam Akers out. So maybe just a Stafford stack, even though he's looked terrible, stack him up with Cooper Kupp and Tyler Higbee. in heck, if you're trying to win $300,000 or whatever it is, maybe in that one team, I'll throw in Allen Robinson just in case he has his breakout day with Stafford kind of thing. And then I think maybe I'll do the same thing with Joe Burrow. A couple of those lineups in there with Cincy stacks. I would rather just play a few Cincy receivers today, just one of them as opposed to go with Burrow, because he is priced up on FanDuel. But he's another one that I'd maybe have in there. And as crazy as it sounds, in one lineup, I might do something. I might even do a Jimmy G stack.
Woo!
In one lineup out of 150. I might do a Jimmy G stack and run, because George Kittle's just so damn cheap. Deebo Samuel's still not expensive. Brandon Ayuk still isn't expensive. Atlanta's defense is improved, but I think there are crazier things to do than spend a very small percentage of to do one lineup in 150 on a Jimmy G.
I mean, yeah, one lineup is fine. I still recommend 0, but hey, you know, it's a hot take. It's a hot take, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm willing to burn that $5. I have no issue with that.
Hey, and it's $5, so we understand. So I'm not. Hey, whew, that one was made me like got lightheaded for a second when you said that one. But I don't blame you, because honestly, Jimmy G, all he does is win and put up and try to win as much as he possibly can. And we saw him have like score touchdowns on the end on a 1 yard line, or even a couple yards down the goal line and run them in. So I don't blame you for that. And then we know he could throw it in there as well too. So
and when I'm making 4 big tournament lineups today, and 3 of them have Josh Allen, the other one is a game stack of Arizona and Seattle, I'm going to be getting heavily overweight in my 150 to Lamar and Patrick Mahomes. That's why I don't mind taking a shot on like a one lineup like that, because I know I'm already going to have so many iterations of the games that I really like.
Yeah, exactly. And like my favorite sneaky quarterback that you mentioned that I think we talked about it briefly on the show. I'm getting well over the field on him is Joe Burrow. Against our Saints, like it's funny, like our Saints are always in the topic of a conversation either somehow, some way every week. But without Marshawn Lattimore being able to guard this guy Jamar Chase, I look for Jamar Chase to have a big game. This could be a game, honestly, like when Joe Burrow had last year against Baltimore, where he just went off. And like I'm looking at his game log right now against Baltimore, where he had 41 points. He had 37 or 36 complete 37 completions out of 46 attempts, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. And then if he runs a little bit, gets another one in end zone, he can have just as much upside as these guys up there up top. And he had I think over 525 yards that game. Then the other game against Baltimore that year, he had 4 to 16 yards with 3 touchdowns. So the upside is there for Joe Burrow, I think. Especially with these receivers, and especially if T. Higgins is out, because you know Higgins is more targets with Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, and Hurts if Hurts plays. So I love the Joe Burrow call a lot. Another guy that I do kind of like also is Kirk Cousins. Just for the simple fact that they're going against Miami. Thing is, I just don't know if Miami's going to be able to push them. If Teddy Bridgewater plays, I think they can push him a little bit, but if it's a backup, the third string quarterback, I forgot his name, then I don't think that they're going to be able to push him that far. So that's something that I would play by ear, monitor the situation. But if you do think Miami can still push the Vikings a little bit, then I like sprinkling a little bit of Kirk Cousins here. But like you said, sticking to just the main guys, the Allen, Jackson, Mahomes, Murray, top 4 as right there, and Gino. To me, that's where I'm sticking my flags on mainly, and then again sprinkling a little bit of this Tom Brady, Joe Burrow, Kirk Cousins pool.
My thing with Joe Burrow, and I'm not saying it's a bad play, I'm going to be sprinkling him in for a full stack, but what I'd definitely rather do is, like, I kind of view Joe Burrow against the Saints as a potential 300-yard, 3-touchdown day. And I just don't think that's going to be enough on this slate. Mm-hmm. And especially when I think 150 of those yards and 2 of those touchdowns are probably going to be Jamar Chase if that happens, I'd rather just load up and definitely get over the field on Jamar Chase, and that's going to be something that I'm trying to do. I always like taking it to receivers next after quarterbacks and then coming back to running backs after, because we talk so much about stacks and we're talking about Jamar Chase right now. So let's run it over to the receiver position. Last week we had some clear underpriced chalk like Deebo Samuel. Now he's only been priced up $300 and he's still a very good play, but the pool is a lot more condensed with a lot of good plays this week. It's bigger than my quarterback and receiving pool because we got to play at least 3 of them, but this is still the smallest receiving pool I've had this year. Talk to me about the high-end guys. How are you prioritizing Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson, and Stephon Diggs?
I can't play like Cooper Kupp. I mean, he's the guy you want to play every single week, but I think he's better suited on the side like probably DK versus FanDuel just because of the receptions amount there. Unless he's gone past a target, unless he's like going bonkers. But 94K, 9400 is too much money to be spending on a guy like him. I understand it though, but I'm probably not gonna get that much of him. Out of these 3 though, I probably would have the most of Justin Jefferson. Going against a Miami secondary that is still banged up. I think they're getting a little bit healthier. They're ranked in the bottom half of the league right now, or the dead last right now in the opposing passing yards rank. So I love getting to him as much as I possibly can and just going with him. And he's going to be the lowest owner out of them, too. I can see Diggs getting shut out this game because he did get shut out one game against Buffalo. I think it was a playoff game, but that's when Davis went crazy, if I'm correct. But it depends on how it really just depends on how the game script or the defensive game script is going to go. Like, are you going to play a lot of man or a lot of man with safety help over the top to shadow Diggs and not allow him to go crazy and just allow everyone else to beat you, or are you just going to like let Diggs work and just shut everyone else down? Like what is the defensive scheme gonna be like? So he would probably be second on my list. It would be on my list behind these top 3. But yeah, I definitely love Jefferson 1, Diggs 2, and Kupp at number 3. That would be my order. What about yourself?
For me, it goes Diggs as the clear number 1. And then Jefferson and Kupp are kind of 2A, 2B. I have a struggle this week with Minnesota and Tampa Bay players in the sense that I like both of them quite a bit. I think both of those teams are going to put up a decent amount of points. They got good totals. Mm-hmm. But I think Minnesota is just going to pump Miami. And I think that Tampa is absolutely going to pump Pittsburgh. Now, maybe that doesn't happen because both of those teams, Miami and Pittsburgh, are at home. But if it happens for Miami, I haven't checked the weather, but I'm thinking maybe it's going to be because they're slowing the game down, similar to how they did against Buffalo. If Pittsburgh happens to put up a good game against Tampa, I don't think it's going to be because Cody Pickett, whatever his name is, sorry. I always get that mixed up with George Pickens, and then I get afraid I'm going to mess up the name.
Perkins, I think his name is, something like that.
I don't think they're going to be lighting it up against Tampa's D. I think it's probably going to be Pittsburgh's defense that steps up and makes that a close game if it is. So I think the results of those are going to be slow defensive battles or blowouts for Tampa Bay or blowouts for Minnesota. Mm-hmm. So yeah, maybe Justin Jefferson has a big day. Yes, maybe Mike Evans has a big day. I like both of those guys, but I can't like them as much as Stephon Diggs, who I just feel like that game could be, the total is what, 28 and 25? It might be 48 and 45. Mm-hmm. That could be a huge total. That's one of the reasons I like Jamar Chase, is because even though I don't think that total is going to be big, I think that game is going to be close. We got Jameis back. We got
James
New Orleans. Sorry?
Andy Dalton starting.
Oh, Andy is still starting?
Yep.
I missed that. I thought
Yeah,
I
we
thought
got
since Jameis was practicing this week, he was going to be in. Sorry, it's still Dalton in, but like they've been fine.
yeah.
I think it's going to be a close game. And so I like Chase throughout. Marquise Brown is somebody I'm interested in for tournaments, and on the cheaper end, we'll talk about Rondale Moore, who I like quite a bit as well. He's still getting his targets. Seattle's secondary is terrible, and I think this is going to be a shootout. And I think Seattle has the ability to keep it close with Arizona, even though Arizona on paper is the much better team. So that's why I'm looking at those guys more so than somebody like Jefferson, Mike Evans, Deebo Samuel, who I like a lot in a vacuum, but I don't like their game situations near as much.
Mm-hmm. No, and that makes a lot of sense, and I'm not gonna, and I wouldn't, and your explanation is perfect, and it's all about how you see the game going, and if that's how you see the game going, then yeah, I would play these guys honestly. Like I'll play a guy like Jefferson in a skinny stack or just by himself, like you were saying. If you like Diggs, I would just play Diggs definitely in the Buffalo stacks and bring it back, especially if that game's going to be you think game's going to be close, which we all assume that's going to happen. There's no argument about the Marquise Brown thing. We know he's been targeted a lot. I think he's a great receiver. Definitely should be a priority this week. Jamar Chase, if this ownership doesn't change, oh my God, like if he's going to be 7% owned, I'm going to be so far above this number for him. And
It's going to change because now I think he'll still be the lowest out of
definitely
the Cup, Jefferson, Diggs crew up there.
Yeah.
Having said that, I do think all of these ownerships of all of these receivers are going to go up because we haven't seen everything fully adapt and fully adjust yet to handle all the news today. We got Benjamin going to be chalk. We got Darrell Henderson going to be chalk, and the one I think maybe we could have guessed beforehand, but the Cam Akers one came totally out of nowhere.
Yeah,
and so that's something that I think is going to have to adjust a little bit. And if we don't see a lot of ownership going to Cooper Kupp because of everybody kind of flowing to Darrell Henderson, then I think
he has me to play.
Yeah, then Cooper Kupp is going to be very, very interesting for tournaments too. The mid-range is super interesting today as well. I personally find myself going more low 6K and 5Ks more or all the way up as opposed to the mid-range just based on pricing. But that doesn't mean that a lot of these guys aren't in phenomenal spots. I think Deebo Samuel is objectively the best play. If you're playing cash games, he's somebody that I'd probably want to look to. Mike Evans is in a good spot. Tyler Lockett is in a good spot. Amari Cooper, Christian Kirk, Chris Godwin, Michael Pittman. I think my favorite, Deontay Johnson, is going to project pretty well, still getting peppered with targets. I think my favorites in this range are going to be DK Metcalf and Gabe Davis. And I am still waiting to find out what's going on with Chris Olave, because if he's playing and he passes all the concussion stuff, they still don't have Mike Thomas. He's probably going to get peppered with targets, but coming off of a concussion, Cincinnati's defense hasn't been bad. Still no Jameis Winston. I think I am comfortable kind of getting underweight on Olave if he is still chalky. And my favorites in this range are DK Metcalf and Gabe Davis. How about you?
Yeah, I love the Gabe Davis call. We know, but in the amount of targets he got with the receptions, it's phenomenal what he's been doing on such little targets. I don't mind that call. But my favorites in these range, I love Mike Evans this week going against Pittsburgh. I think he just could have a phenomenal monster game here. I think this is a game that's made for him to go off, especially when they get down to the red zone. I see him snatching up a couple touchdowns since they've been using Leonard Fournette, but not using him a lot to punch it in. Because I think they're trying to manage his injury history and make sure he's healthy going into the playoffs. The entire lock of DK Metcalf, I love these two guys a lot. I'm going to be well over the field on these two guys. I don't know how much I'm going to get to with Deebo Samuels. I like him, especially this matchup against Atlanta. He's a great play. It's just that only one blow-up game, one huge game, and it was against the Rams. I don't know how big of a game he's going to have against Atlanta because I don't know if Atlanta's going to push them with their with San Francisco probably having the best defense in the league. But a guy I do like a lot that we really haven't that you I think you mentioned briefly was Christian Kirk. Um, him like coach was talking about him this week. I don't even know. I don't think it's just coach speak. I think he really meant it when he was like he is a guy that needs to at least get 9, 10, 11, 12 targets a game. So if that's the case, because 3 is unacceptable by him, we could see another standout game like he had against Indiana the first time where he went 6 for 6, 78 yards with 2 touchdowns for 22 fantasy points. And at 7K, I love that price, especially with him being low owned. So I'll be trying to take some shots on guys like those, in these in this mid range, in this mid range here, and going just for the upside here and seeing what they can do in their matchups.
I like it. I like it a lot. I currently have Kirk in one of my lineups, and I wish I had it in more, but I have one team that is in the midst of all my heavy lineups focusing on the 4 o'clock games. I got one that's just all 1 p.m. Spots just in case those are the ones that happen to blow up, and he's in that one. I like Christian Kirk quite a bit. Guys like Devin Duvernay, I like in Justin stacks. With Rashad Bateman out, he is interesting, but I'm not trying to play Devin Duvernay unless I'm also playing Lamar Jackson. And then for me, I love Isaiah McKenzie. Like the 6K range and below, there aren't many that I like. Like it's not one where I'm going to have a week that I'm going to have 10, 15 guys who are cheap in my lineup or in my pool, sorry. But the ones that are in my pool, I like a lot. And so it's Isaiah McKenzie and Rondale Moore are 1A and 1B as my favorites. I love both of them this week. Then from there, Marquez Valdez Scantling and Tyler Boyd are the next 2 that I'm really interested in looking to this week. Boyd, if this is specifically if T. Higgins is out, but we're expecting him to be out. Valdez Scantling has been getting more and more involved in the offense every single week for the Chiefs. And I think if they're going to keep it in the game with Buffalo, he's a good way to get exposure to it. And then the last 2 that I'm looking at for tournaments that these are more so flyers. One is going to pick up some ownership, but I'm not comfortable fading, and that's Romeo Doubs. And then the other one that I'm looking to get to is George Pickens.
Yeah, the George Pickens call. He's been getting like 8 targets the past 2 games. I love it. I think they're just gonna keep feeding this guy. So I definitely don't mind that call and taking a shot at that for sure. He's a good play, especially in this lower range. Me personally, I like the Isaiah McKenzie. He's probably my favorite guy to go with on Buffalo. But if it's like if it's outside of Stephon Diggs, I thought I had him in here, but I gotta put it back real quick. I like also on the I like Marquez Valdez Scantling, but I'm not gonna play as much of him honestly. I do kind of like going with I like going with him, but I do like going with a guy like Nico Hardman. That's a guy that I'm going to probably try to get a lot of exposure to in this matchup here. I know he's been sprinkled in here and there, but I think that he's the guy that can go off and just give you if he gives you just a touchdown here at his price, I think you'll be fine. So he's someone I think I'll play a little bit of. Especially if I play him, I'm definitely want to make sure I run him back in my Buffalo or Kansas City stacks as well. So I like that call for myself. Devin Duvernay, like you said, mentioned, and only in stacks you got to play him with Lamar Jackson, in my opinion. But other than that, that's really it. I don't know. I kind of want to go with DJ Moore with this new, especially since Carolina's gonna have a different guy at quarterback here. But I don't know if this is the matchup to do it, even though we know Jalen Ramsey has been not the best corner this year.
In 4 games last season, where PJ Walker attempted at least 10 passes,
yeah,
DJ Moore recorded 20 receptions on 37 targets for 284 receiving yards. Those numbers are among the best in Moore's career with any starting quarterback.
yeah. So he's someone that should be more of a priority then, especially with
two starts in PJ Walker's career 2 years ago. DJ Moore totaled 12 receptions on 22 targets for 228 receiving yards. So yeah, DJ Moore is somebody that has to be in the pool now. Another person that I think is somewhat interesting is Darius Slayton. With all these injuries for the Giants, he got back into the lineup and he got a bunch of targets last week. So Darius Slayton, I think, is somewhat interesting as well. And just because I am playing a lot of Josh Allen in 150 lineups, you're trying to win that first prize. I don't think it's crazy to do like a triple bill stack and include somebody like Khalil Shakir in there because they only have 4 receivers right now, and he's one of them.
Yeah, I don't mind that at all. I think that's not a bad call, for sure. I'm thinking who else do I want to target? Like I don't mind going with Thielen here at 5'9". I think he's a great play. We didn't mention Juju, like, and what there's 2 guys thinking Juju's in one guy. In that KC game, I think it's going to be low. He's obviously going to be low owned, but he can very well be the guy that has a big game here. I feel like he's definitely been getting targets like every game. He just hasn't gotten the end zone and hasn't gotten the receptions. He's going to have a big game eventually. Like I can see it here in this spot against them, but I just don't know how much I'm going to get to him because of his price point and around his price. We obviously have guys we really love, in other games and other game environments. But he's in the best game environment, is getting targets, and should have a good matchup in the slot. And especially with all the attention, they're going to be focused on stopping Kelsey. What do you think about Juju?
What if the answer is I was right all along and he's just not very good?
It could very well be that. I have hope for him a couple weeks, especially because I have my season long leagues, but he really might not be. I feel like after these next couple games, we'll figure it out because if he can't perform well in the spot, because I think, like I said, I think the way the game plan should go is they should try to get Juju, Hardman, and Valdez Scantling the ball as much as they possibly can, because I think Travis Kelsey will command a lot of double teams, triple teams, possibly. So how effective is Kelsey going to be? Let those other guys beat you. That's what I would do, especially when you see how the target share has been going and spread out. This is his time to shine in this type of matchup. I think he has to perform or not, and I think he can do it. I'm high on him for it, but I just don't know. I know the field obviously isn't as high as him on it, but I think he can have a monster game here.
I would only be playing him in lineups with Patrick Mahomes.
Oh,
and the last receiver I want to touch on quickly, and we don't have to talk about him for long. I just need a yes or no answer from you, and then we'll shift it over to the running back position. If Drake London is out, if Kyle Pitts is out, do you have interest in Olamide Zaccheaus, or are you just thinking, man, 49ers D is the best play on D?
They're the best play D because Zaccheaus is how much?
He's 5,300.
5,300. I mean, because even with, yeah, no, I don't. I mean, 5,300. He can. The target share was still not there, and this is what Pitt's out. He only had 4 targets. Like that means, like Brian,
but London in, and so that's the big thing is we got Drake London listed as questionable right now, and that's 6 to 10 targets off the board.
Yeah, exactly, easily. But how much they're
probably going to be losing. But I do think this is just going to be a very slow game. So I think this is already too much time spent talking on it. And I think the answer, if we got to think about it for that long, is no. Maybe you sprinkle him in one if you're running 150. But in a lineup, you also have Deebo Samuel or Jeff Wilson. But I think the answer is no. Okay. Let's take it to the running back position. We got some good expensive guys up top. McCaffrey, Barkley, Fournette, Cook, Kamara, Taylor. Guess what? I don't really want to play any of them. We had some value open up earlier today and throughout last week. Kenneth Walker is going to be starting for Seattle. He has looked good. He no longer has Rashad Penny to contend with after he fractured his ankle last week. Eno Benjamin, no Darrell Williams, no James Conner. This is his backfield now. He's looked good in limited touches, and now he's going to be getting more of those touches. Darrell Henderson, Cam Akers, personal. Maybe it has something to do with his injury. We might be something we don't know. We don't want to speculate. But he's out. And so now we got $5,700 Darrell Henderson, who kind of disappointed as chalk in week 1. In week 2. But still, when Cam Akers got a bit more touches, but that was when Cam Akers was there and got a bit more touches. He's not there anymore. So Darrell Henderson is looking like a really, really good play as well. And another one, we have Damian Harris listed as questionable. Now, we expected him to be out. He was originally ruled as doubtful, but he has managed to log limited practice the last 2 days. However, it is still a hamstring injury, and we're not expecting him to play. And if he doesn't, Ramondre Stevenson against this porous Cleveland run defense is looking really, really enticing. Those are my top 4 backs on the board by a lot. What about you?
Yeah, it's hard to get away from these guys. It pretty much is. You can't. These guys they're just in. It's like a perfect storm and a perfect situation for these backs. Like these two teams they're playing against each other. Walker and Benjamin, fast-paced matchup, a high point total. Both defenses are not that great. Like you can't argue with those and the price points. The Henderson thing, I'm kind of. I mean, I don't know. Like, I know he's going to get the touches. He's going to get the looks. It's going to be hard to decide now because I think, honestly, you can play all these guys, but the biggest question I think we're going to have to figure out is, do we want to play, I guess it's more so for later on, but I'll bring it up now. Do we want to play 3 running backs or do we want to play 4 wide receivers?
It's a 3 running back week for me. It's absolutely a 3 running back week for me. I just love so many of these guys so much.
One of these backs is going to
Walker and Benjamin are in such good matchups for both of them in a fast-paced game. Both of them will be involved in game scripts regardless of how it goes. If they're winning, they're going to get the ball. If they're losing, they're going to be getting the ball in the passing game. In theory, it may not be optimal to play both of them together, but in a lot of my lineups, I'm going to be having both of them together. Darrell Henderson, for me, it's less about Darrell Henderson and more about it's the Rams. They're 10-point favorites at home against Carolina's third-string quarterback.
Yeah.
That's why I like it. Like, that's the only reason is they're 10-point favorites at home. And their other running back who he splits duties with is gone. Like, he should get 20 touches and he should get a ton of red zone touches. And then if they're up 10 later in the game, yeah, maybe somebody else gets in there a little bit, but it should be Darrell Henderson Jr. Ramondre Stevenson has been an RB1 this year while splitting touches. Damian Harris got hurt halfway through last game, and he got 25 rushing attempts.
Yeah.
He was already their receiving back for the most part, getting 5 targets in each of his last 2 games before last. And he'd been getting double-digit touches in every single game this year, with Damian Harris still technically being the feature back. So if Ramondre Stevenson actually gets legitimate RB1 touches, he could absolutely break the slate as well. So those 4 to me are the ones that I think have the greatest combo of upside and safety. And the reason why it's mostly going to be a 3 running back week for me. And in addition to that, some of these other guys I just love as well. And crazy enough, it's not the Saquon Barkleys and the Dalvin Cooks and the Alvin Kamaras and the Jonathan Taylors. They're going to be in my pool because they can break slates. Christian McCaffrey, he's not. I don't think he can break this slate. I don't think he will. And he's out. He's not going to be in my pool. I'm going to eat my words. If that happens, I'll take my L, but there's so many other running backs I like better. I'm not going to play him. Joe Mixon, Jonathan Taylor, Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook, Saquon Barkley, I'm going to get 5 to 10% of all of them. But outside of my big 4, the people that I'm most interested in taking shots in are going to be Aaron Jones against the Jets. He's been very much outpacing A.J. Dillon lately, getting a lot more touches. And so Aaron Jones, again, their favorites against the Jets at home. I like that one as well. The other one, somebody in that same game, Breece Hall. I like Breece Hall a lot this week. He's coming in under-owned. He's been getting full control of that backfield the last couple weeks, and he's looked very good doing it. He got vultured by Michael Carter twice last week, but it was because he was exhausted from getting them all the way down the field there. So Breece Hall is somebody that I like a lot. He's even cheaper on the other side this week, but on FanDuel, it's going to drop his ownership, and I like him quite a bit. A.J. Dillon, I'll sprinkle into lineups as well, because if he does get more touches or something happens to Aaron Jones, he could absolutely break the slate. Keontae Ingram is going to be somebody I'll have in the pool just in case something happens to our super chalky Eno Benjamin. Now, I know Eno Benjamin is not projecting for ownership yet, but this is going to change because the injury report came out today. And so Keontae Ingram is the guy who's likely going to be getting the backup carries. He hasn't played this year. He's a rookie. They just brought him up off the practice squad. But you never know. Anything could happen. It's Seattle. It's a high-scoring game. We're going to get a chalky Benjamin, so I'm going to sprinkle him into a few in my 150. If I was running 5, if I was running 10, he absolutely wouldn't be included. The last two I really want to touch on, though, are two in this awesome Buffalo-Kansas City game. I don't want to play Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I'm scared of not doing it. I'm
going to tell you don't do it.
And I'm not going to do it.
I think you like.
But I'm interested in Jerick McKinnon because he's 5K. And if Kansas City has to start playing from behind, I could see Jerick McKinnon getting very involved in the passing game. Him being out there for a lot of hurry-up style offenses as they try and come back. So I don't hate sprinkling in some Jerick McKinnon for the purpose of full game stacks. I'm not going to be playing Jerick McKinnon by himself, but I'm going to go out of my way to get Jerick McKinnon in a few lineups that I have Josh Allen and 3 of his receivers and Travis Kelce and Marquez Valdez-Scantling, like just full game stacks. That's where I want Jerick McKinnon. And then if I'm not playing Josh Allen, I think I want to have Devin Singletary because this team is going to score points. He doesn't get a ton of runs. Sometimes he gets targets. Sometimes he doesn't. They mix in Zach Moss and James Cook a little bit. But Devin Singletary is a guy that I think could have a huge game because it's the game environment that I'm interested in. It's not Devin Singletary I'm interested in. It's the Buffalo Bills I'm interested in. So because he's on that team, I want to be getting to him, especially in lineups I don't have Josh Allen.
Yeah, I'm a little torn on the Devin Singletary call, and I get it. I get why. I just think that Kansas City, like, that front line played really well last week, and I think they have one of the best defensive ends in the league, and their front seven is not a bad one. They're definitely a top defensive front seven for sure. So that one gives me a little bit of pause on a run game, which is why I just not even want to go with a guy like Devin Singletary here, especially when you brought up all the other backs here. And that's something that we have to think about too.
Reminder: Josh Jacobs last week had 21 rushing attempts for 154 yards.
Yeah,
5 receptions for 39.
I get that, and it's a rival in a division game, so I feel like division games are different. I always say that division games you don't know how it could go. Like I feel like defenses in that way kind of don't matter. What they did to Leonard Fournette the week before was crazy. Wasn't expecting that.
I think that was game script though. Like that's to me why I'm interested in Singletary is if they're going all out to stop Josh Allen, and then the ground game is where they get to him. The reason why, like, Leonard Fournette only had 3 rushes because they were just down so much. They were like Kansas City put up 41 points on them, and they had to throw the ball just to be able to keep up with them. And so that's kind of how I view that one. It was more game script specific. Like, and you look the week before, Jonathan Taylor. They did a pretty good job of shutting him down, but the Colts kind of game schemed that one to run a nice, slow, good defensive game to get Kansas City on that one. And then in the second week of the season, they did a decent job against Eckler, first week of the season, who did they play? The Cardinals, and they were up so much that James Conner wasn't getting overly involved anyways. So to me, it's less about the matchup. It's less about the player, and it's more about the total game environment.
Yeah.
And I think there could be 80 points scored in this game. So if there's not, then I'm not going to win a lot of money because I have a lot of Josh Allen. So when I don't have that Josh Allen, I want to get some Devin Singletary because I'm so overweight on Josh Allen.
And I kind of agree with that. I personally just won't probably have as much Singletary. One thing I want to mention though, guys, we mentioned a lot of these backs. I love all the backs that we mentioned here. Use like for strategy purposes, if you're going to be running three of these guys, a 3 running back week, like he said, and we know we have like Stevenson, Walker, Benjamin, Henderson Jr. You can play all those guys, obviously, but I will make sure you run at least 2 to 3 of them in your lineup. I mean, maybe put at most 2 of them in your lineup. Like make a group specifically where you probably don't want to get to like no more than maybe 2. It depends on the ownership though. But look at the ownership and let that play out the way it's going to play out, and decide from there. Because if you can still get one of these backs for low ownership, then that's fine. But I personally might think that they all going to be the highest chalky running backs on the slate. Probably at least 20% on all of them, 25. So probably maybe getting 2 of them in your lineup and then having a third one that's off the board, like he mentioned, Breece Hall. I love Breece Hall this week as well. I think he's in a great spot. Aaron Jones, one of these type of guys that just can go off and have a monster game. I think that's the way to do it, just to ensure your lineup is different in tournaments. But if you're playing cash games, and load up on 3 of those guys, and you'll be fine and good to go.
I think there are so many good plays this week that we're not going to have to. Oh, the Benjamin stuff has literally just got updated as we're speaking, as we're recording here. So we're up to the RG Premium one. So we got currently Kenneth Walker. We're projecting at 30%. Benjamin 36%. Ramondre Stevenson 25%. And Darrell Henderson's has not been updated yet. Okay. And so those should probably come down a little as Darrell Henderson's pops up too. And I think there's enough good other plays that we're not going to have to worry about it too much. Like I agree. I love the idea of like mixing in Breece Hall and Aaron Jones and like playing those guys for sure. But for me, this week is going to be less of a how can I get very contrarian and more how can I build lineups that are suited to a specific type of game happening, whether that be fading all the Buffalo pass catchers and stacking a different game with just Devin Singletary, or playing Josh Allen with 3 receivers and 3 players from Kansas City and hoping for a 40-40 game.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I'm looking to play this week. And I'm going to try and let other people screw up. I'm going to play the good plays, the Kenneth Walkers, the Benjamins, the Hendersons, the Stevensons. I'm going to rock with those chalky plays. I'm going to try and do full game stacks outside of those guys. And I'm also going to make sure I get I'll have some teams with no Kenneth Walker, and they'll be Geno Smith with Lockett and DK Metcalf. The ones that don't have Benjamin, well, they're going to have Kyler Murray with his receivers, or maybe they'll have Keontae Ingram. The last player I want to talk about at running back before we move on here to the tight end position is Jonathan Taylor is still questionable with that high ankle sprain, foot injury he's been dealing with. We have Nyheim Hines, who's questionable with that concussion. We get both of these players out. I think we got to like Deion Jackson as well, who last week was already getting some touches right off the bat before Hines got hurt. Then Hines got hurt right quick, and Deion Jackson ended up getting 13 rushes for 62 yards, 4 targets, 4 receptions, and he was splitting work with Phillip Lindsay, who's now also questionable. So depending on this running back situation, if Jonathan Taylor's out, Deion Jackson, based on the practices this week, would be the guy who would be having been getting most of the work outside of Taylor, who's been practicing in a limited capacity this week. So if you don't get Jonathan Taylor, it's probably going to be Deion Jackson as the guy, and I think he makes for a strong tournament play, pivoting off of those guys.
That would just pay down and run back this week, just because there's so many good options, and if you get that one, and because honestly, I thought Phil Lindsay, and I think everyone thought Phil Lindsay was going to get a lot of that work, but it was really Deion Jackson who ended up being the guy there still. So, I love that call. I think that's a great call to just point out, to just have people be, pay attention to a little bit here. But let's move on to tight end real quick, and then we can get to maybe some defenses to wrap it up. I think it's kind of a fairly simple slate. Like Kelsey, Andrews, Higbee going to be the top guys. I like them a lot. I really and I really do like though getting a little bit different with this Taysom Hill call, especially now that we know for sure that Andy Dalton's gonna be starting at quarterback. It's just a matter of time before this man just comes in again and just does something crazy. And you can play him at the tight end position. I know he's expensive. So like if you're running like a certain amount of lineups, he's not for the faint of heart. So if you like think that game script plays out the way it's going to play out, where it goes off and goes over like I do, he's someone I think you want to get a little bit of exposure to, and run it back definitely with, if you have any line, I would run it back with the Jamar Chase for sure, because that's who I think he's more likely to go off with in there. But my tight end post probably gonna be smaller than this. I do like some other guys though, like Evan Ingram, George Kittle here. I'm gonna be targeting those guys a lot this week as well. And Hayden Hurst, if he's playing as well too, would be someone I'm interested in. What about yourself?
Small pool for me as well here. I'm actually going to be Xing out Tyler Higbee. He's not someone I'm going to be going with this week. Yes, he's been getting peppered with targets, but not a lot in the red zone, and he's picking up ownership, and I just would rather play Darrell Henderson or Cooper Kupp. And so Higbee is going to be somebody I'm looking to get away from because there's too many other tight ends I like this week. Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews will be my priorities. They're going to be the ones I'm getting to the most. If I hit that 6K range, it will be Zach Ertz that I go with over Higbee. I just love this game environment against Seattle. He's been getting a ton of targets. So Zach Ertz is somebody I like quite a bit. I love Hill wouldn't play if I was playing 5 lineups or 10 lineups, but running a lot. I love the idea of doing the mini stack with Chase. George Kittle I like this week too. Good matchup against Atlanta. His price keeps going down, and his breakout will happen eventually. He's probably not going to get any more than 5 or 6 targets ever, but one of these days, those 5 or 6 targets are going to come with 2 50-yard touchdowns that he breaks. And so George Kittle is, based on talent alone, is somebody that I'm looking to get to. And then guys like Dawson Knox, the Seattle tight ends, I'm only going to play in stacks. Cameron Brate, I will play in a Tom Brady stack. I run it up with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin because Brady has shown he will target him quite a bit. And then the last person that is going to be in my pool as well when I'm needing to save some salary is in that same game, Zach Gentry. Pat Freiermuth picked up a concussion last week. He is going to be out again this week. Pittsburgh likes to target their tight ends, and in Freiermuth's absence last week, Zach Gentry at 4.6K had 6 targets. So I think he's even more interesting on the other side, but is interesting on FanDuel as well. But the priorities for me, it's Kelce and Andrews. Kelce and Andrews, Kelce and Andrews. If you're playing if you're playing cash, which one is it?
Andrews all day, every day. I love Andrews. Andrews is my top spend tight end on the week. Honestly, he's going to dominate. He's going to have a big game. I guarantee it.
I like it. And kind of how I'm running things in my one main lineup, Andrews is my tight end. And then in my other Buffalo teams, that's where I'm mixing in Travis Kelce in there. So I'm kind of trying to get the best of both worlds with this one.
I don't even
That'll
know.
Basically,
real quick, I don't even mind the if you want to get really different in tournaments, play both of them in the same lineup. You can do that as well. You got enough value on the play where you can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is interesting as well. We're trying to get out of here before we hit 1 hour, so let's talk defense and then let's scram. There are about 10 teams I think you can roll with today, and all of them are in relatively equal spots. If I'm playing a cash game, I think you go with the Los Angeles Rams, and if you can't get there, you need more salary than that, and you got to go cheap, I think you're playing the Bengals up against the New Orleans Saints. I wouldn't fault you for playing other cheap teams in tournaments like Pittsburgh, like New Orleans, like Atlanta, even Buffalo in tournaments. But I think you're looking at the Rams or the Saints in cash games, and I think your highest upside spots for tournaments are paying up. The Buccaneers, the Vikings, the 49ers, and the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I echo pretty much the same sentiment you mentioned with all these guys. I do like though Jacksonville a lot. I think I'm going to be over on Jacksonville's defense against Indy. I'm just high on them this year. I think that they're a really, really, really good young defense.
I'm with you. They're about the only defense this year that I've hit on. Defenses have consistently been one of the worst parts of my lineups, and the Jags have been the exception to that rule this year. We have done it. We're going to get out of here before an hour, but I'm not too upset about the time because I feel like we gave the people some really strong insight this week. It's a straightforward slate, but we picked and chose some ways that who we want to prioritize, how we can get difference in tournaments, hopefully win a lot of money this week. So thank you to everyone who tuned in. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you hit the like button for us, subscribe to RG. Helps us out lots, and then make sure you're tuning in on Sunday as well, because I believe Dre's going to be on for crunch time. I'll be on the GPP final takes right beforehand, and then I'll be back on Sunday talking Sunday Night Football with STL later as well. So stay tuned to the RG feeds. We got lots of great football content coming, and that'll do it for this week. Good luck. Peace.